Well, welcome here to episode 273 of the Canadian Football Countdown, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network and the Alternative Football Network. I'm your boy Trey Colbeck, joined with my bestie from the Westie here, Adam. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing good, Trey. Exciting weekend coming up. Don't need to tell you pretty much anything else. I mean, great football coming up here, both of the stadiums. Yes, they're sold out. You don't have to worry anything about that. And having a bunch of comments saying that about them not being sold out. Both are sold out. Both are exciting. Both are rivalry games. What else do you want for a division final?
Yeah, I can't ask for notching. I don't know about Montreal, but it's supposed to be really nice in Winnipeg. I'm assuming it's going to be nice in Montreal. So beautiful weather. Hard to make the argument to bump up the season if it's going to be perfect weather in Winnipeg this weekend. So, yeah, should be some big games. Before we get too far into it, got to mention that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Game Time TV. Learn more by visiting GameTimeTV.ca or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/GameTimeTVMB. And we also want to make our land acknowledgement. As always, we acknowledge that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well from Treaty 4 territory, the traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis Nation. Ooh, that's a tongue twister. And yeah, if you want to get looking for more additional content every week, check us out on Discord at the Canadian Football Countdown. I was doing a lot of NFL picks. I've gotten so busy that I have stopped caring about the NFL, which says a lot. Call of Duty came out. That's the real reason I've stopped doing picks. Call of Duty Black Ops 6, I've been grinding that nonstop. We also got Adam's got some farm pictures in the summer. Ryan throws his fantasy stuff up in there. I throw some UFC and horse racing stuff in there. So make sure to check out the Canadian Football Countdown community Discord. And thanks you for our people who are watching. So we're going to kick it in. Maybe before we start getting in the games, there's some rumblings we'll talk about. Looks like Calgary might be hosting the 2026 Grey Cup. Are there some announcement scheduled tomorrow, I believe? So, could be that, or it could be a new stadium, or it could be Calgary's folding. I don't know. Which one is it?
Well, I kind of doubt on the folding one, although they might get repealed and pulled into the what do you call it? Retracted, I guess, maybe, but
relegated down to UFL. Oh crap.
Anyways, and also a shout out to our Alternative Football Network guys for that one. But anyways,
it's not regulate. It's not a regular. Yeah, it's not a downgrade. It's just a lateral promotion, right?
Pretty well, yeah. Anyways, no, it sounds like the 2026 Grey Cup is going to be heading out to Calgary. Again, I've been acknowledging this kind of like what you do with a very, very old horse, comparing an old horse to McMahon Stadium. You take her out for one last ride, and for the love of gosh, please go and take it out back and
shoot it out back.
Hopefully, and then go get the new horse. That stadium is in terrible shape. I know that they're going to put a bunch of money into it to make it look good for the Grey Cup, and they'll put some temporary seating up. Get your seats early. The temporary seats will go so far. I'm sure those will sell probably before the regular seats. But you know what? Honestly, it's good. Calgary gets a little bit of a boost. But please, I hope this was with an announcement that there is some project in place to replace McMahon Stadium or really do some real renovations to that thing. But you and me were talking about it just before the show started here. This will be the 5th Grey Cup. That'll be out west, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Regina last year, BC this year, Winnipeg next year, and then Calgary. Yeah.
Well, last year was it in Saskatchewan already last year?
No, it was Hamilton last year.
Yeah.
Okay, so 4 of 5 have been in the West. We forgot about Hamilton, right? Yeah. So still 4 out of 5 in the West. Because again,
I'll presume that Edmonton's going to get one pretty soon because of the new owner.
Probably, you would think so. Maybe Montreal can make that argument too. They got a new owner too, who might want to have a big bang. Yeah, Hamilton just had one. Ottawa, they have a pretty new stadium too. I'm sure they just want to get their team on board for. And Toronto too. Toronto would be an interesting one.
Yeah, Beagle.
Yeah, I wonder what this decision is. I wonder because again, maybe is it next year where Taylor Swift's concerts during Grey Cup? So probably not a great idea to put that in Toronto next year. So that's why it's probably in Winnipeg, and then the year after, put it in Calgary. But yeah, interesting stuff. I kept seeing a lot of things that it was. I thought Ambrosi maybe put a thing on Calgary telling them they couldn't have one until they upgraded or renovated or rebuilt the stadium. So hopefully there's something going on. Maybe Ambrosi being out of commissioner might have a part of this too, or he said, hell with it. You guys can play it in your shit stadium. I don't care. I'm not paid for this anymore. It's the next guy's problem. That's probably what he's thinking. If I was him. And like always, we have to say me, Adam, and Ryan have definitely put our hats into the ring for that election. Now that one election is done and we can forget about what's going down south, the real election starts. Let's make the CFL great again, and let's vote for one of us to be the new commissioner.
All I could say is I've got to get that hat made one day.
Make the CFL great again.
Make the CFL great again.
Oh yeah. So yeah, the first thing I'm getting rid of is the dribble kick. Like gone. So Oh yeah, gone.
You see it once every 50 years? I can't remember. Yeah. When I was at the game on last Saturday, I asked Justin Dunk when the last time he's seen a dribble kick ever happened by a quarterback, and he couldn't even answer it. He had no clue.
Well, still getting rid of it.
No.
It's getting rid of it.
Nah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway,
and I'll build a wall around Saskatchewan. That's the first day. Heck with the 10th team. We'll just get rid of you guys. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm sure we'll have a lot of off-season talk about our debating over that. Who gets to be the CFC's commissioner? Maybe we'll have to argue and take commissioner away from Ryan in some of our fantasy leagues.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to do that work, and neither do you.
No, neither do I. Not a chance.
Ryan,
Ryan is permanent commissioner of those leagues.
Yeah, we resign. We formally announced that we resign Adam to Ryan to a 40-year deal to being the CFC fantasy commissioner. So
absolutely,
we'll do with that. But yeah, got a couple big games this weekend, I guess, on Saturday. Oh man, here it is, the East Final. Toronto going into Montreal. This game on paper is very, very interesting. Montreal isn't the same, to me anyway, the same team that they were earlier in the year. You got Toronto that they've had glimpses of looking really good. They put up a lot of points last weekend. They almost hit the over themselves, if not, didn't they?
Yeah. I think actually they would have been on the over themselves.
Yeah, 58-38. Now, granted, they did let Ottawa put up 38 on them. But how much of that was also like, hey, we're up pretty big. Who cares if they get a touchdown here in the third or the fourth? Didn't Toronto have like a couple pick sixes in there, a couple crazy plays? So I'm very interested to see how Toronto bounces back. Montreal, a lot of their starters have had a lot of off time, again, with injury, sitting out, and now they get the bye. So I'm very interested to see how this one turns out. What are your thoughts on this game?
Well, I think that right now Toronto has the momentum going in, obviously. Montreal did not look great up against, well, they look good again because they were resting players against Winnipeg, and they've been resting players for quite a while now. It'll be interesting to see how fast they come out. Again, this is a repeat of the East Final from last year. The only difference is this one's here in McGill's Stadium versus the BMO Field. So it'll be very interesting to see how Montreal takes the approach to this game. I think their defense has to really step up early and often in this game to get Chad Kelly rattled. It worked great last year. I mean, Kelly threw, I think, 4 or 5 interceptions, and Montreal took advantage of it, and that was the main reason why they went to the Grey Cup. If they can do that again, if they can get Tyrese Beverette and the rest of Montreal's defense really going the right way here quickly. I mean, Darnell Sankey's been really good this year. You've looked at other guys again in the defensive line. Montreal has been a very good defensive team, and they're going to have to be against the Toronto Argonauts right away because you seen last week. I mean, if it wasn't Malai Polk, if it wasn't Chad Kelly throwing up balls and making catches with Tavares Daniels, that game there might have been a little bit closer, but Toronto just way overpowered the Ottawa Redblacks. But again, I'll tell you right now, if the Toronto Argonauts let the Montreal Alouettes have 38 points like they did against the Ottawa Redblacks, they're going to lose. The Alouettes are not going to give up 58 points. We all know that. So I think the Argonauts got a really good chance in this one. But again, this is probably one of the closest East finals you're going to see. It's going to be a very good game, I think. Right, Trey?
Oh, 100%. And I think the line at -2 is as good as you get, because that's more or less saying if this game was in Toronto, I guess you flip it, or on neutral site, it's almost a coin toss. And if it's in Toronto, you almost give them -2. I really enjoy this. I like this line. It's a really tough line, especially in the CFL with the Rouge and crazy lines and stuff, crazy points and stuff. But yeah, game-wise, Chad Kelly, I was just talking about it 2 weeks ago, going into, because we missed the last week. He's been like per game, he's been one of the better quarterbacks in the league if you just go off of his time since returning from his suspension. So he's definitely get things going and working here. I'm trying to pull up the stats, but I think, what did I have? I think he beat everybody in like yards per game. Like maybe Bo was the closest, and outside of that, it was Chad Kelly standing alone. So he's definitely getting a lot of passing yards and getting things done. And one thing too, they have a lot of time of possession. Just looking at the stats too, they're third in the league at possession time, and that could be a big thing too in a colder weather game here in November. They run the ball most on first down. I really enjoy what Toronto's done this later half of the year. But on Montreal's side, how exciting would it be if they're kind of back to what they were week 1 through 5? With Phil, I know Phil Pot and a lot of the injuries still, but Phil Pot putting up 50 fantasy points and Fajardo throwing for like 5 touchdowns. If that's a game we see, I don't know how Toronto keeps up either. Like you said, yeah.
Yeah, and you look over on the Montreal sidelines. You're talking about injuries, of course, to Philpo and all. Austin Mack, I think he said that there. What was it? Jason Moss said it was a maintenance day or whatever you want to call it. I think he's okay to go, but there's that little bit of a question mark out there. When you consider the offenses on these games, on these teams, I agree with you, Trey. I would think the advantage would be to Toronto Argonauts. The last 7 games, they've scored 30-plus points in each game. And yes, they have played the Montreal Alouettes in that time too. So I think advantage Toronto on the offense. What about the defensive side of the football? My advantage would be to the Montreal Alouettes. I think that they right now have the better linebacking core out there. I think their defensive line can get pressure on to quarterbacks if they really push. That being said, their run game isn't very strong when you face the Alouettes. Kadeem Carey might be a big factor into this game if the Argonauts can get running the ball. And again, Chad Kelly is fairly mobile. He's not the most mobile quarterback. But I would say probably still advantage Montreal. But what's your thoughts on the defenses here?
No, I agree. I think both defenses are pretty dang good. I would give a little bit of a benefit to Montreal, but I think any day Toronto can line up with the best of them as well. And you have to trying to find the stats in front of me, so I'm not talking out of my ass. But I feel like Toronto's defense for a lot of the year, again playing fantasy and stuff, they had their days where they got you points, just as much as maybe Montreal's. See, I don't know. I would honestly say the defense is maybe is as close to even if I was looking at it that way. And then if I want to go another way, I'd give some special teams love to Toronto with Janarian Grant. He always looks like he's one block away from returning one. It is one thing in Winnipeg. I understand why I'm not crying over it. I understand why we let him go, because you're probably paying him $200,000 just to return kicks, and Bombers can't afford that this year. But yeah, special teams, I would lean towards Toronto. Offense and defense, depending on who shows up what day, that might be a coin toss.
Yeah. Myself, I like on the offense, I'm definitely with Toronto. The defense, I'm saying Montreal. In the special teams, I got to go Toronto too. Janarian Grant has been great. He's been given a good field position all season. The Argonauts and Hairolahu, almost said it wrong. He's been great all season as well. He's been kicking long, short, no matter what. It seems like he's very consistent on his kicking game as well. Montreal side, decent. I mean, I think Julian Grant does a lot of the returns, if I'm not mistaken. Good. Has always a good return, but he doesn't seem to be that breakaway threat, I don't think, quite as much as Janarian Grant. So, coaching-wise, I don't know. Dinwiddie's a great coach. Jason Moss seems to have really found his own since coming into Montreal. I think that he's not like it ain't Edmonton no more for Jason Moss. He's an established coach. He's took him to the Grey Cup. He's been to the show before. I don't know. I would almost say about even because Dinwiddie won it the year before. So fairly even on the coaching side. I guess the biggest thing now is what's your pick? So there, Trey.
You know, I went back and forth on this because I'm looking at a lot of things. I like trends, but then also you could throw the trends out in the playoffs. My internet being crappy?
A little bit.
Yeah, I just see this. Whatever, we'll power through it. I was leaning towards Toronto, and then I found an interesting stat that they're 3-5 against the East, while Montreal was 6-2 against the East this year. So Montreal definitely does a lot better against their division. Plus, they're a lot better at home, which I don't believe in home field advantage. But home field, I think Montreal was 6-3, while Toronto on the road was 3-6. However, give me Chad Kelly because of chaos. If he's a Grey Cup champ or one of the Grey Cup storylines, I think we'll see a lot of people upset on Twitter like we did today and yesterday for a different event. No, but seriously, I do like Chad Kelly. I think he is, honestly, it wasn't actually a huge troll when I said he was the best quarterback in the league 2 years ago. I thought he had the potential. I thought skill-wise he could definitely be. He just hasn't shown it yet. And he did at that one drive in the Grey Cup, and I think every opportunity he has on the field, he seems to be a pretty outstanding player. So give me Toronto +2 and Toronto to win this one. The over/under. Hit me with the over. I think both teams will go off. I think both defenses are good, but both defenses might score some damn points too. So, give me the over 52 on that one. What are your thoughts?
Well, I've been saying Montreal for a long time here, and the reason being is Cody Fajardo has been a new quarterback ever since coming to the Alouettes. He's played very well. If something happens to Cody Fajardo, I have no issue seeing Davis Alexander go in there. He seems like a Cody Fajardo 2.0. Does very well for this team as well. I like the Montreal's receiving core quite a bit. Again, Austin Mack has been good. Rambo has been good in certain times. You've got Cole Speaker who comes out when he needs to. You got Walter Fletcher. Oh, wait, no, he's a running back. I forgot he's not a receiver, even though they use him as one essentially most of the game. And I like the offensive line, honestly, of the Montreal Alouettes. Probably a little bit better than the Toronto Argonauts line. Battles are won in the trenches. And I would say probably the D-line and the O-line of the Alouettes are a little bit better. That being said, the Argonauts are going to give them a fight. And they've been hot pretty much for the last half of the season, where Montreal's kind of been this, I'll win the game, but I'm not going to win it by much. I'm just going to do what I have to do to win the game. And eventually I said that I was going to burn the Alouettes, but I don't think it's this weekend, especially at home. I'm sure Jason Moss has been going for the last 2 weeks and making sure that these guys are 100% ready to go. They got the little bit of extra rest. I don't think anybody got hurt from Toronto that I've seen against Ottawa. But that being said, something about the Alouettes again this year, man. I think that we're going to see some poutine and a lot of Montreal fans heading out towards the other end of the country. Give me the Alouettes for this one here, just because they're at home. And I will go with the... Yeah, I'm going to go with the over on this one, too. It's playoff football. They're going to throw the ball up. They're going to have some exciting plays. Yeah. Players to watch. Anybody that you're really looking at this weekend in the East? I know I'm really off order, but
I know we are. I really want to see the quarterbacks on both sides because I almost have a feeling these two teams are a little bit switched from last year, where last year Toronto was the 15-3. Nobody thought you could touch them. And Montreal was that team that secretly kind of won 7 of 9 or 7 of 8 going into the end. Now Toronto hasn't been that hot, but also Montreal I don't think is as good as Toronto was last year. So they're both kind of slightly in switch positions. But I really want to see the quarterbacks because I want to see Fajardo. If the Bombers can't win one, I mean, I'm happy that he won last year. I really was hoping for Fajardo to win one. And the fact that that game-winning touchdown was so close to the uprights made so much better that finally he didn't hit it and Philpott caught it. I'm really hoping that, I think Fajardo is the key. He hasn't had the greatest of year due to injuries and this or that. And on the other side, Chad Kelly, man, again, I'm always open for a good feel-good comeback story, and maybe he's changed, maybe he's a new Chad Kelly, and what kind of story would that be? I would enjoy his post-game interview if he wins the Grey Cup. So if it's anything like his Twitter after a couple beers, I'm sure his post-game will be great. I want to see the quarterbacks, but I also want to see the run game too. I think Kadeem Carey, like you said, on Montreal side, they don't run it a lot. I just had the stats up. They're not a great running team. They use Fletcher in different ways, where Kadeem Carey is more the traditional, give him the ball and he's going to chew up yards. I'm interested what the weather is going to be like, too. I'm going to Google it real quick here. On Saturday.
Go ahead.
Saturday, it's +7 and sunny in Montreal. So it's actually a colder day compared to the rest. On Friday, it's 12 and stuff. So a little cooler of a day, but I'm very interested in the quarterback and the running game. You?
Any freak 90-kilometer-an-hour winds predicted for?
Well, the Bombers aren't playing. The God is behind the Bombers, man. There'll be some freak winds in Princess Auto.
Fair enough. You know what? I'm looking at the two receiver battles, to be honest. I'm looking at Mackay Polk, and I'm looking at Austin Mack. I'm looking at those two right now, and I want to see if whichever one of those gets the most yards, I think is going to have a very good chance of winning the game for their football team. Mackay Polk has had probably a last third, at least, to remember in any CFL. I mean, a rookie, and he's just lighting it up. Every time it seems like Chad Kelly's favorite target is Mackay Polk. That being said, he got some off to DeVartis Daniels last week, but Polk has just been something else. I honestly wish I had him right now in my fantasy chart because he might be a keeper for next season on our private fantasy league. Ryan, if you got this message, give me a call. Anyways, the other battle I'm looking at here is the linebacking side of things. I think that I would, again, Montreal, to me, is the team that's going to be relying on their linebackers to make some big moves and make some pressure on Chad Kelly. So that would be, again, Darnell Sankey. That would be Tyrese Beverett, who has the most defensive plays this season, bar none. And, I mean, he's always dangerous to get that knockdown or that pick from the secondary spot. And then on the other side, you look, it's Royce Mechie, who's had a very good season as well for the Toronto Argonauts. So overall, I think I'm going to, again, I'm watching those two things, the linebacking core and the two receivers there. And whichever receiver wins this, I think probably is going to win the football game. But boy, I'll tell you, if Montreal or Toronto's linebacking cores get going, that'll be fun to watch too.
Oh, I agree. This should be both games are going to be a heck of games. I think this is the best matchups you could have asked for in this round anyway. We could debate what the best matchup is for next week because I know a lot of people want anybody but it went from ABC to ABW, anybody but Winnipeg, right? A little bit on the west side. And the east side, I think either team is going to put up a great chance next week in BC. I'm kind of torn on which team I want to see more out of this game. And whoever owns it. Is there anything else we want to talk about this game, or do we want to go to the game we really care about?
Well, I don't want to say it like that, but yeah, let's head to the next game.
I'll say it. We got the guy wearing this, and you got the guy wearing. I saw what you were wearing. Yeah, we got that. So we know the fans. Everyone knows what game we rather talk about. We're unbiased. We're pretty good at being neutral, you and me and Ryan. Yep. 20 of the weeks. Banjo Bowl Labor Day, our shit comes out, and this week it comes out. I'll admit it. I'll admit it. So that's fine. I have no problem with that. To admit that. So we're gonna go on to the next game here. Oh, let me do the banners. I usually just zone out when you and Nat Ryan are talking. So now that I actually have to work, this is ridiculous, man. We need an intern to do this. Anyway,
if you're interested in applying for an internship with the Canadian Football Countdown, call one of us. Don't talk to Ryan because he'll never let it happen.
Yeah, completely unpaid.
Yep, totally unpaid. It's an unpaid internship.
If anything, you have to pay us.
Absolutely.
And you get to fix the banners. And yeah.
And you can't cheer for Winnipeg or Saskatchewan, otherwise the balance of power is out of place.
You got to do somebody else. We need somebody else.
For sure. Anyway. Send us your applications, people.
Anyway, that last game would go at 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Eastern. I feel like Ryan always says that. This game, 5:30 Central Time. Adam, our times are the same now because that little time. It's actually funny. I was working at the bar last weekend on the night the time switched, and a group of like 20 people from Saskatchewan came. And all I could think about was like, they don't understand what this time change is. So when the phones change, they're going to want to try to stay in the bar for an extra hour, aren't they? Because we closed at the same time regardless. Like it was 1 o'clock when we closed. We said, heck with it. We're not staying open that extra hour. So that was fine. But yeah, there's actually the Saskatchewan people got the heck out quick. They were good. Try sneaking in beers though. That was funny. The girl had a beer in her back pocket. And we're like, you can't bring that in. And she's like, why? And I'm like, okay, because this isn't a bar in the middle of nowhere, Saskatchewan. You just can't bring your own booze. And she did not like that comment, but that's okay.
I mean, it's not a gravel pit party out from the grids over by Jansen or something.
That's what I mean.
Sorry, Jansen, I'm picking on you tonight.
Because I was like, someone said, oh, are we being weird? And I was like, nah, I grew up in Verdon. I know how all you Saskatchewaners are. Anyway, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg. Probably one of the better battles we could have, especially with the teams, how the teams have been playing. Both teams have had shaky streaks or skids, and a lot of both the teams looked pretty good. 2-1, they were head to head this year. Saskatchewan winning the first meeting, whatever that was, back in July, and then July the Bombers. 17th. When?
July 17th.
July 17th. There we go. And the Bombers winning the Labor Day Banjo Bowl sweep this year. Minus 3.5. The Bombers are favorited here in a 48 over under. Very interesting lines. The weather supposed to be another beautiful one. You could take the roof off your tractor if you're coming. Do the convertible tractor. Maybe not that nice. What is it? Oh, it's actually warmer here than in Montreal. It says plus 13's the high.
I know.
That's nice. Like shorts weather, man. It's not even crazy for me to wear shorts on Saturday.
It's going to be like, again, it's going to be like a summer day. This is going to be too warm for the game. They might get some cramps going on yet.
Man, go in my swimsuit, man, instead of my shorts, man. You don't see that north end zone? They're shirtless by halftime anyway, so it doesn't matter. Very interesting game. Well, man, what are you looking at from Saskatchewan side? I know there was a lot of injuries on the thing, but, that could be a little showmanship or, little funny business there. But how are the Riders feeling? They did have a lot of injuries this year.
Yeah, lots of injuries. And I mean, I think the nicest thing though is they're getting players back right now when it matters. Yes, Trevor Reed, I was at the game. There was no way I thought that he was going to be playing this week. I mean, he had ice on his knee. It does look bad. I could see that. And again, I didn't see what happened to Jackson Ford. Those are the two players right now listed out for the Riders that were playing last week. But the nice thing is Ryan Scevrier is ready to go for the Rough Riders, and he'll just fit right into that line. You also got Noah Zur, who's ready to go if you ever need it. The Riders are good, and they'll be in business here. They're playing with their full roster. There's no excuses. Keon Schaefer-Baker's 100% and healthy. Took that big hit against BC there, but he's ready to roll. Trevor Harris is at 100%, and he's been looking pretty much like Tom Brady almost out there at times. The Riders are good and healthy and ready to go. Yes, they've got little minor tweaks. I mean, it's the playoffs. Nobody's at 100% when you get it this time of year, but I think the Riders are pretty healthy going into this one. I think a lot of that was Corey Mace trying to harness his inner Mike O'Shea to put out to the roster, to the practices. Winnipeg, on the other hand, I think they are getting a few guys back as well for the West Final. What do you know over there, Trey?
Oh, I don't know anything. Who's coming back?
Well, I think Brandon Alexander is healthy, isn't he?
Perfect. That's a big addition to the defense there, which one thing I think the Bombers would struggle with that bend not break. I can't find the exact stat. I can't remember the years. It was either 5 of 6 or 9 of 10, something like that. The last West Finals have been won by the home team. And the only time the home team didn't win the West Finals was that one in Saskatchewan in Regina in 2019. No, but I don't, hey, we're looking at trends here. That's a nifty trend, but I guess I'm honestly, someone was asking me, who would I have rather played, BC or Saskatchewan? And 100% I would have rather played BC. I think because even if I have a lot of respect for VA and what he could do. Outdoor games in November are not BC's strong suit, even in plus 13. I'm going to completely repeat that. And BC, although they're a rival, I just don't feel like that crazy shit happens when Winnipeg and BC plays. But when Winnipeg and Saskatchewan play, crazy shit happens. Caleros throws 5 picks last time we played and they somehow win? Something like that. Or Fajardo is off the uprights, and the three times they got stuffed on the goal line. Crazy shit happens when these two teams play, and it doesn't. And I don't like it from a betting standpoint. I don't like it from a fan standpoint. I don't like it at all. I'm gonna be at this game, and if I'm not, kids, I apologize. I'm gonna be stoned out of my mind. Like otherwise, I don't think I could sit through this game.
Yeah, honestly, I'll be with everybody enjoying a beverage or two in Saskatchewan. And depends how this game goes. I'm sure there'll be a lot in Saskatchewan that there'll be a lot more beverages going down the way this game is going. By the way, drive safe home from Winnipeg, please, people. Anyways, the other one that I've got here,
though, I'll just run through the injury. 110. I was going to say, just because the speed limit is 110 doesn't mean we got to go 130 on number one.
Hey, when you play in Winnipeg, you want to get the heck out of there as quick as you can.
I don't think I've ever went slower than 125 on the number one highway, and that was when it was 100. So I mean,
that's before it was divided.
Yeah. Oh man, the quick little McDonald's runs from Vernon to Brandon. I went there and back in less than an hour, man. That's there and the McDonald's driving back. Get me some Mickeys, man. Not proud of that.
Anyway, I'm going to just run through the injury reports here. Just to get this done here, just so everybody knows who's injured, who's not. Saskatchewan had pretty much a full page and a half, but John Bain Jr. obviously knees taken out. He's not going to be there. Jackson Ford's out. Frankie Hickson's out. Lake Corte Moore, that one's kind of a little bit tougher, but yeah, he's going to be out for this week. Anthony Lanier is available. Dante Myers, wide receiver, he's going to be out. Again, that's more just maintenance and anything. Joe Robicelli, he'll be out. And Trevor Reed, of course, I just talked about him. He's out. Over on the Winnipeg side of football, Jamal Woods is questionable for this game, knee injury. He did fully practice, though, so I'd imagine he'll be playing. Brandon Alexander, again, we talked about him, hand injury. He fully practiced, but again, questionable. And Kyrie Wilson, the linebacker for Winnipeg, calf injury. He didn't practice on Thursday. He's questionable, but again, usually when Osei is questionable means they're playing. If I found one thing that I've seen with Mike O'Shea quite a few times on his reports. So let's break this down a little bit deeper here. Let's start with the offenses. I'll do the Rough Riders. You do the Bombers if you'd like.
Yeah.
The Riders, honestly, Trevor Harris has been 100%. And once he's been healthy here, honestly, he looks like a Tom Brady out there. High completion throws. He's getting great help from his receiving core. His receiving core has been really good. Ever since they got Deshaun Johnson into this team, this has been a different team for a receiving core. You look at it, though, you got Keon Schaefer-Baker, who had some big catches when he needed them. They've had all sorts of great work. Duncan Busby has been very good for the Rough Riders since coming in. And boy, I'll tell you one thing. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, again, are not maybe the best of teams on the run block game. And they got two beasts to deal with this week. A.J. Ouellette, who had 70 yards in the West Division semifinal and 2 touchdowns. And, if that's not enough, there's also that Raquel Armstead in there that, if I'm not mistaken, lit the Bombers up one time as well when he was still with Ottawa. So the Riders are a darn good offense. Are they as good, though, as the Winnipeg Blue Bombers? What do you say, Trey?
It depends on what offense we get, because we have Zach Collaros, who threw for like 5 or 6 touchdowns a couple weeks ago against, who was that? Over they had Edmonton. It was Edmonton where he went off and then barely lost to Toronto and barely beat the backups for Montreal only because of a freak of nature win. I don't know which offense we're gonna get. Obviously, they're gonna have to rely on Oliveira, and the got to do that, got to get that going. But our offensive line has been running and pass game this year. And other than a couple of games, I've not been impressed with his offensive with the receiving core. Lawler had a good game or two. I haven't seen a lot from Dembski. Yeah, and I don't know. This offense scares me, but it depends on which one we get, man. Like if the Bombers can run for 200 yards and hold the ball for 35, 40 minutes, they're going to win the game if they do what they normally do in these kind of games. But Collaros throws a couple of picks and the Rough Riders stop the Bombers on that 1st and 10 run. Collaros, if the Riders put Collaros in second and medium and second and long, oh, it's gonna be a long day in Princess Auto Field for the Blue Bomber fans.
Yeah, and also I think the other one that I would see on Winnipeg side is they need Ontario Wilson to be looking like Dalton Schoen. Yep. I mean, he's got to have his best game of the year, and if he does, Bombers have a very good chance at walking away and heading off to Vancouver next week. On the defensive side of the ball, of course, Saskatchewan has got one of the best defensive secondary players in Roland Milligan. That being said, I'd like to put a star beside the secondary. If the Riders are going to lose this game, it's going to be because of the secondary. Nelson Lacombo had one big pick last week, and he looked good, but not otherwise. He had the one pick that made him look good. Otherwise, I'll be honest, I wasn't impressed with him. They were targeting that area in the safety position and making him try to make moves. And Amari Henderson and a few others were not really blocking very well and covering the plays. Did they get Vernon Adams in bad positions? Yeah, they caught him a few times, maybe not looking for the defensive back, but that's where the Riders are maybe a little bit weaker. The defensive line is outstanding. It can really block a run game very well. Other than one run, William Stanback was shut down last week. Micah Johnson, Brian Cox Jr., who is playing this week. I thought he was maybe going to be injured, but he is playing this week. And, of course, they didn't even have Anthony Lanier II in last week. This week, I would expect Lanier to draw in. I would think that this team here, I would say bar none, the Riders are the better defense with a question mark on that secondary. What about the Winnipeg side?
No, I agree. If you look as a unit, I definitely think Saskatchewan's defense is better. Again, it's Winnipeg. It depends on what team you get. Does Jefferson, Jake Thomas, Garbutt, and Woods wake up and on that defensive line, and do they act like they sometimes do act in these big games? I can't see. Maybe I could see Ouellette and even Armstead having maybe a tricky day running the ball. I could see Harris not having tons of time. But if those four play like the crap they played sometimes this year, I could see Harris having all day throwing the ball, and I could see Ouellette and Armstead running for 5, 6, 7 yards pretty easy. So I really think we have that defensive line, whatever, smelling salts, a Red Bull, whatever it is, get fired up, man. Because I think a lot of the defense begins obviously in the trenches. The middle linebacker, in the middle of the linebacking core, Cromdry, Jones, and Cole, I've actually been kind of impressed with them since Big Hill had a season-ending injury. I don't think the middle linebacking core is a huge issue. And the secondary, if Alexander's back, like you said, that fills in our safety, which I think has been maybe one of the biggest issues. And then you have Tyrell Ford, Holm, Nichols, and Bonds as your corners. Those are some of the best. That might be some of the best cornerback core in the league, comparable to Saskatchewan. Tyrell Ford. I keep saying Trey Ford. Tyrell Ford. I think the key to this defense is either you need that defensive line stripping the running back, or you need that secondary picking up a pick or two if the Bombers really want to win this game.
No, agree. And again, I think this is the golden age of the CFL for Fords. I mean, you got Tyrell Ford, you got Jackson Ford, you got Trey Ford. There's a lot of Fords in the league right now.
And then Dwayne Ford up in the booth.
Dwayne Ford up in the booth. You know what? It's the year of the Fords. Anyways, yeah, I agree with you. The Bombers can really do it. I mean, if they can shut down that run game of Saskatchewan, I think that they really could have a very, very good game. And it could be a long one for Rider fans making the 6-hour trek. Special teams. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think either fan base is gonna have a long day on Saturday.
I think both teams are gonna have fans are gonna have a long day, either trash talking each other while they walk into the stadium, and once they get to the stadium, it's gonna be pins and needles for 60 minutes.
Which one of the two do you think has more of a chance of being a blowout between the two games?
I think this one, honestly.
This one? Okay.
This one, the reason being is one team could absolutely crumble. Both of these teams are known to crumble.
That's true.
I don't think either one of those teams on the east side are really. I mean, Toronto, yes, I've seen Chad Kelly throw a lot of footballs badly and get intercepted. I mean, he had a terrible game against Ottawa this year, the East Final last year, and I mean, this is going to be his test over there right now, playing the same team that he just did last time. If he doesn't throw a lot of picks, though, like I said, those are pretty even teams. These teams here have that tendency of once in a while just letting a kind of dropping an egg. Winnipeg's done it in the past. Saskatchewan has definitely done it before. So like I said, this could be, if there's going to be a real blowout, it could be one of these. I don't know. To me, I don't think either one really will be, but I think the potential is here for this one.
No, this is the one I hope it isn't the most. I think both fan bases just really need a good game. And so does Toronto and Montreal for sure. But yeah, special teams, man. Man. I really like your kick returner better. I like Whitehead, and I've been saying it for weeks. My wife is sick of me hearing it. Every time he catches the ball, I say he's gonna break one soon. He gets close and he just gets pulled down or pushed out of bounds. He's really close to breaking one, just hasn't done it yet since he was given those duties. And Castillo, man, the most frustrating. He can hit a ball 61 yards, but then something 30 to 40, he'll doink it. And I just don't understand the logic. Maybe it's because it's so far back that the stress isn't there. I don't know. And our kicker, our punter, Shan, I've never seen. I don't know. He puts a weird Aussie spin on the ball, and I hate it. He's the only guy. Every time I try to go I go to the bathroom every time we're punting the ball away, and by the time I get down, I'm not even really watching. There's this one old guy kind of in my section down the front, and he is just saying the worst things to this guy. And I'm like, since when have we been so hard on a punter? And maybe it's just we got spoiled with Medlock with him doing everything for a few years and everything fair enough. But yeah, our punter definitely, man. It was funny. My grandma too. My grandma didn't realize we had two guys. She thought it was the same guy. And she said to me, yeah, he's really good at field goals, but he's awful at punting. And I'm like, oh, Grandma, it's two different guys. And she's like, that makes sense. I was like, fair enough. But yeah, Castillo, I really hope that we don't have anything over 40 to go for. And I hope the punting game isn't a huge deal because, yeah, with how our punter is and how your kick returning guy can be.
Yeah. Well, yeah, in Saskatchewan, you're right. I mean, Mario Alford, he hasn't been the same this year. He's been maybe a little bit more average, but he still gets you a good return usually, gets you in good field position. He did break one against Edmonton and I think somebody else. But, yeah, Super Mario could break one at any time. Be nice if he did this week because, boy, that would sure help turn the tides around anytime when Mario Alford's running. Our kicker, of course, is Brett Lowther. Since that game against Montreal, man, I don't know what's happened if somebody said something. Well, and he did. He got chewed out by the media. He got chewed out by the fans. And everybody reminded him, that Montreal game, that was your fault. Essentially is what they told him. They didn't maybe say it exactly like that, but they pretty much, they said that was Brett Lowther's game that he lost for us. Ever since, I don't know if he's been perfect, but he's maybe missed one or two. He's been very, very good for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. That being said, if I got to take a long range, long bomb, 60+ yard field goal, I take Sergio Castillo. I'm just not going.
He's got something weird over 55, but then 30 to 45, it's just like you're holding your breath.
So you're hoping that the field goal is anywhere between, 35 and 55. Don't bother kicking it. Just back it up to the 55 and go from there.
How bad our punter is, just punt it. And he'll just spin out of bounds at the 20 or 15 or something.
That's the nice thing about the Rough Riders right now. Caden Korzak has been just absolutely lights out this year. I think he's averaging like 65 or 66 yards. He's a great punter. Aussie punter also, but again, just really has done an excellent job in punts for the Rough Riders.
Sometimes, though, punting it too far isn't good either, because that gives the return guy more time to set up. Yeah, the returners don't even get a chance to be 5 yards away, and a guy like Whitehead or Alfred on your side, either guy, you find a little bit of speed. Like I said, Whitehead's gonna break one. If not this week, maybe next week if the Bombers make it. It seems like he's always one guy away, and I think the home game is for a place for him to do it, especially the response he got. Mascot's a coin toss, Gopher versus two birds.
The Gophers got to win this one.
Oh, man. At least thank God you guys don't have the crazy green eyes anymore.
Gainer's coming on the side-by-side and making laps. That's all I can say.
Okay.
He might hit a bird in the windshield, but that's okay.
Coaching, I'm very interested in coaching because you got the rookie coach versus the rookie head coach versus what a lot of people consider one of the best coaches, especially in Bomber history. I think he's up there in wins now, if not second or first already. It doesn't seem like he's been around long enough to have that kind of record, but I guess it's just the way the Bombers have been playing. Man, head coach, I give it to O'Shea, and I'm not saying this. Mace is right there. Coordinators, I have no idea because Buck Pierce, I still don't know if he knows how to draw a playbook at all. And our defensive coordinator, who I don't even know.
Jordan Younger.
I don't even know who our defensive coordinator's name off the top of my head. All I know is it's a Richie Jr. And I can't deal with it.
It's his schemes. It's Jordan Younger in Winnipeg if you're defensive coordinator. Over on Saskatchewan, Mark Mueller's done a great job this year with the offense. I mean, they drew it up perfectly for Trevor Harris. Whenever anybody else steps into that game, that gets a little interesting. But you can see right now the Riders have a lot of confidence in what Mueller's been doing, and Mace obviously sees what's going on. So I would say probably Mueller is maybe got a little bit on Buck Pierce. Buck Pierce essentially it seems to be rely on Caleros finding either Dembski or Lawler, or you pass the ball off to Brady Oliveira. Essentially is what it's been for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
I think
that being said, I mean, it's worked. So good.
Yeah. I think, like a lot of football games, I think whoever makes the best halftime adjustments, because like we said, either of these teams could be up 20-0 at halftime. But that means the game is far from over, right? At that point, if the team winning 20-0 doesn't make the right adjustments and the losing team comes back, if it's tied at halftime, I think it'll all be depending on coaching adjustments. It was funny because I work with a lot of guys that play for the Bison, and they just suffered a heartbreaking loss last week. What was it? Get the game-winning, what you think is the game-winning touchdown, then give up a game-winning kickoff return seconds later. So some of the former players were like, it's coaching, man. They don't make adjustments. And that's the thing about a lot of teams. You don't make adjustments at halftime and you might lose the game, right? And I think but I also worry sometimes about O'Shea and again, is he playing, he thinks he's playing chess. Does he screw himself up? You know what I mean? If you think you're playing 3D chess and you're just having all this thing. I always thought about that with Belichick and other these top coaches and Saban in the States and college. Are you just playing 3D chess with a bunch of guys playing checkers? At some point, the guy playing checkers is going to keep it simple enough to win. And I'm not saying that's Adam Mace. Adam Mace has been a really good head coach. I think he's
Corey
got a
Mace.
long. What?
Corey Mace, not Adam Mace.
Who's Adam Mace? Adam Mace is a horse racing guy. That one's my mix-up. I was like, I know there's an Adam Mace. Corey Mace. Thank you. It's me screwing up today. Good thing BC's not playing, so you don't have to mess up Hardy.
No, that's Ottawa.
Ottawa now. Well, Ottawa now, but still, Corey Mace is a good coach. But yeah, I think this game is going to be interesting, man.
Yeah, no, I think it will be too. And I don't know if Mike O'Shea, I've ever seen him overthink things. He has always got everything. It seems like when you watch him on the sidelines, he's got everything prepared to a T and what he wants to do at all times. I mean, whether it was, again, I remember the one game, I think it was last year. Again, fourth quarter, 2 minutes left. Some guy from Winnipeg was almost fumbled the ball. I don't know. I think it was Augustini. And almost fumbles the ball. O'Shea calls a timeout, brings him to the sideline, tears him a new one. And I'm like, dude, it's a 30-point game. What are you doing calling timeouts? But you know what? That's O'Shea. He's always prepared. He's always ready. He could be coach of the year every year. There's always a reason. I mean, let's face it. He took a team from 0-5 all the way to 9-0, and then finally lost that last game.
Yeah,
I know we did win the last game. So I mean,
I was gonna say this team doesn't look like 11-7 team or whatever. No, it doesn't. Yeah,
like you'd think they'd be way better than even 11-7. Mind you, that being said, the way the Riders look right now with Corey Mace, who is nominated for the West Coach of the Year, that team doesn't look like a whatever it is 10-9-1 or whatever they're called for a roster record. That team looks way better than what it is as well. So, yeah, it's insane what things are right now. But two really good coaches, and I can guarantee if they need to make adjustments, they're making adjustments for sure. Atmosphere, well, if you want to count that one, because everybody else has been insisting on it this week. Home field advantage apparently beats lots of Winnipeg because they're going to have a sellout. And the Riders didn't, so that must be a huge advantage, right?
See, I don't necessarily think it's an advantage. Yes, it's going to be an advantage to some degree. There's no such thing as home field. I don't care about that. But what my issue is, this is my issue. I hate the people poking fun at it. There's a couple Facebook groups where it's just constantly like, okay, I think there's a valid concern that Saskatchewan can't sell more tickets to a playoff football game. I'm not saying anything shots against the fan base. The same thing with the Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets have lost, one game this year? And they're selling 11,000 seats? It's nothing about the team. I don't know. You're more about it. Is it overpriced? Is it not worth? Hey, I'm talking to my wife. I don't even know if I want to go to Bomber games anymore. When you could just sit on your couch, more or less watch it for free or whatever you pay cable. You can pause when you go to the bathroom. You don't have to take the kids to the bathroom. You don't have to worry about getting bundled up. You don't have to worry about paying $50 for a hot dog and a beer. You just throw a frozen pizza in the oven, order skip. There's a lot more benefits to staying at home. So we don't need to poke fun about it. I think Winnipeg, we just got nothing better to do. Which Saskatchewan is like that too.
Yeah, but Saskatchewan is a little different than Winnipeg. Notice that, just start with the team names. Winnipeg has 1 million people within 1 hour of the stadium.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. No, I'm not poking fun, man. I
know you're not. I know you're not. But I'm just pointing this out to whoever from Winnipeg fans that are going and saying, hey, look, Saskatchewan sucks.
Yeah.
Anyways, what I'm pointing out here, though, is there's 1 hour within 1 million people with fans with Winnipeg. That's why they have an NHL team.
Yeah.
Guess what? Saskatchewan, I've got to drive 2.5 hours down to Regina, enjoy the football game. By the way, you better not go drinking because guess what? You got to drive home. And yeah, that's not a cool thing to do is drink and drive. So unless you're staying over and spending another $180 or whatever it is for a hotel, then you can go and drink. And by the way, drinking is expensive nowadays. Gas is expensive nowadays. You know what? When fans, it gets me wound up too. But I'll tell you right now, this is a problem for Saskatchewan. But it's not the team's problem. This is a problem squarely on Craig Reynolds and the upper management of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. They need to do something to entice season ticket holders that, hey, it's worth me spending my $110 worth of gas to get into Saskatchewan. Because don't forget, most of us drive big trucks. It's not like we're driving the Teslas out to Mosaic Stadium. So we got to spend money on gas. We got to spend money on hotels. We got to spend money on everything else around that. If we're going to a hotel overnight, we got to go have supper. Or we got to go and have food at the stadium. And everything is so expensive nowadays. And the entertainment value, I'm sorry, I'm a Rider fan by heart, but it's not there anymore as like what it used to be. I used to be a guy that was in the band when I was in high school. There was the Rider Pep Band. It was always the coolest thing when you got to go and play in the marching band and the pep band was right beside you and you got to go and try to show up the tuba guy beside you. There wasn't even the pep band in Regina the other day. No pep band, no flyover during, again, you aren't having Remembrance Day games. You may as well have done the flyover for the playoff game. There's no flyover. There's no band. There's no drum line. The cheerleaders essentially are interpretive dancers nowadays. Their routine. I don't want to be mean about it, but it's not the same as when they used to get thrown up in the air and all sorts of cool little things happened.
They still do that in Winnipeg a little bit. I'm more mad they got rid of the name. I was like, what's wrong with being called Blue Lightning? That was our Dallas Cowgirls name for a while, and that was the Bomber Cheer Squad. No, I agree. Like I'm saying, the Bombers. I think the Bombers game day experience is one of probably the best right now, and I'm saying that's the issue. I still don't even want to go half the time. That's my point. Like that's the world we live in. This Saturday, from my perspective, there's probably a dozen racetracks on. UFC is on. College football is on. Hockey is on. I'm not really watching college football and hockey, but the options there. UFC, I'm probably going to be watching UFC on my phone. Football's on. All these things are on. I can watch all that on like I said, at my computer, where I can go take a leak, grab a beer from the fridge at a 10th of the cost. And for you, you're right. Hotel, I don't want to go 30 minutes or 20. It's probably 20 minutes to the stadium, and you don't want to go 2 hours. I think this is an issue that expands because we're seeing it too in our NHL team. People don't want to go to the hockey team, a team that's got one loss or 1 or 2 losses, right? Saskatchewan. I don't think it's a fan base issue either. No. You're feeding your kids or paying rent or going to a football game. And it's a no-brainer decision, right? Like it's a no-brainer decision.
No, exactly. And I mean, to me, like I said, if I was Saskatchewan and I was the upper management, again, Craig Reynolds, that sort of side of things, I would really, really, and again, I know they've been sending surveys out, but there's got to be something to go and figure out what would make you come to a Saskatchewan Rough Riders game. Let's say a guy hasn't gone to a game for 2 years. Those are the guys they got to talk to and say, what would make you come to a football game? Because you're right. It is way more comfy to go throw a pizza in the oven with some wings, wait for them to cook, and have a beverage while you're sitting on the couch with a big recliner on it. Oh, yeah. Instead of sitting in between a little row. And I mean, I was sitting front row. It don't get better than that.
And my biggest thing, you're not locked into one thing. That's the world we're spoiled with. Like I said, I could have the Bomber or this game on TSN, and I could flip over to Sportsnet to watch UFC. And then I could, on my phone, I could have horse racing. And on this, I could have this. And this, and I could have this. And it's weird because it's weird. That's the world we live in, right? Where we're used to having, and I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit of a nerd. I kind of want to play Call of Duty this weekend. I don't want to go to a Bomber game. I'd rather play Call of Duty because that's what I want to do.
Yeah, so and my thing, like even for this weekend, I would love to go to Winnipeg. There's no question in my mind. I would love to be in Winnipeg going and screaming at some Bomber fans because that's just the fun thing to do. That being said, so many things I got to get done. I just can't do it, right? And again, 6 hours of a drive.
I do have an extra ticket if you make your way here.
We'll talk after the show. Okay. Anyways,
I forgot I have an extra ticket, and I didn't know how serious you were about coming or not, so I was trying to get rid of it, but no one caught it yet, so I have an extra ticket.
Well, hey, we'll talk after the show, and we'll see what we do here. But you know what? Like I said, it's just such a tough thing to spend that $200 in gas or whatever it is. And I mean, in Saskatchewan, you've got guys coming in from Red Deer, Alberta, that a lot of guys from Alberta come to Rider games all the time. You guys coming from Saskatoon, which is an hour and a half.
We do have that in Winnipeg, too. We got people from Brandon. We have people from Northern Ontario. But you are right. 1 million-ish people live a lot. I would call it the GTW, the great GWA, the greater Winnipeg area or whatever, right? Like Winnipeg and the surrounding areas. Like there's a lot of little towns. Like my wife works in a town 20 minutes away. There's probably 100 little towns 20 minutes away from Winnipeg where all these people could come to Bomber games, that come to concerts, come to Jet games. It's not that hard. It's no different than driving from one end of the city to the Bomber game. So I get that. But yeah, it's just such an issue. And I think the league has to look at it too, because again, I'm sure there's more than I would be shocked if this game on Saturday is actually sold out. Like, there's going to be empty seats. There's going to be season ticket holders that have way better things to do. There's going to be these tickets that they gave away for free and the people don't show up. It's not going to be.
And to be honest with you, Trey, all I would pay is just for some Rider fans just to take some pictures of empty seats, because 100%. That's what we need to talk 100%.
About. And honestly, all the stupid fans that talk shit last week deserve it. I was a little surprised. I will be honest, I was a little surprised about how empty it was. But I don't feel that like. But again, I'm more looking at it as, what do we need to do to get the team? Because like that Naylor thing I posted, sure, maybe the Bombers are the team now, but it's a little concerning that the Riders aren't the team anymore. What do we have to do to make them be the team now? Because I think the best thing for this league, the best thing for the CFL, I know we're going off the game here, the best thing would be if Saskatchewan and Winnipeg were competitive on every level. They all sold out all 9 home games, or as much as possible. They had the best in-game experience. Both teams are 13-5 and 12-6. I think that is what would be best for this league, especially in these two provinces. And then a competitive other teams will be like, oh shit, I guess we got to follow suit, right? Like,
you want your best two teams to lead the CFL, right?
Yeah.
And again, we were both talking that we were going to both be running for the position of commissioner. Of course, Trey's going to have us make the CFL great again. I'm going to go and probably have a different hat and saying, make the Rough Riders fill their seats again. That's my hat. But anyways, you know what? We've talked enough about this. Let's move on to players to watch. Trey, is there any players on the Blue Bombers that'll win them this game besides Oliveira?
Knowing how Caleros plays our backup quarterback, I don't know. I don't know.
Terry Wilson.
I don't know. I'm hoping Caleros. I really, for the love of God, I want him to play good. He doesn't need 350. Maybe he can get away with one of those 250 games, 250 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception kind of game. Just don't do any. Zach, if you're watching, I know you watch every Thursday night. Don't fuck it up. Don't. That's all I just want you to. Don't do it.
Wow.
Man. Don't do it. Other than that, I think, yeah, like you said, I can't say Oliveira, but honestly, okay, I'll go the offensive line. I think the offensive line needs to give Caleros time. Are you putting that as a timestamp when Trey dropped the F-bomb?
Absolutely. I'm marking that one as a timestamp when you look right at the thing, look right at the camera and just say, what do you call it? Zach, don't screw it up. Anyways, for the Rough Riders,
anyway,
I think
I'll give the offensive line. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's the offensive line a bit, but I think it's more of Trevor Harris. You're right. If Willie Jefferson and Garbett and all those guys really get running the ball, running down on Trevor Harris, it's going to be how can he escape the pocket? And if he can't escape the pocket, how do you get that football out even faster than usually what Trevor Harris gets football out at? So that could be a big question for the Rough Riders. I mean, they did it pretty good against the BC Lions, although really it was Matthew Betts. It wasn't really the whole D-line that was pushing for the Lions. Sorry, Richard, in the chat. Nevertheless, I think the Riders, it's Trevor Harris, essentially. And again, I'll put a little star beside the defensive secondary of the Rough Riders. Lacombo, Henderson, and everybody else in there has to have a brilliant game against the Bombers and get Zach Caleros rattled. Get him, not maybe rattled. And again, what I say by rattled is get a pick quick. Or knockdowns real quick on Caleros, and he will eventually give you some tasty turnovers. So, again, the secondary is the big thing for the Rough Riders. The line is good. We all know they can stop the run. We know the linebacking core is good. It can stop the secondary run if it has to. But again, the biggest thing I'd be worried about on the Riders is Trevor Harris. If the Bombers can get the ball boot or get the defensive line up front going, and if nothing else, it's the secondary for the Riders.
Yeah, one thing I will say, I'm actually going to pull up the stats because I'm going to say something here. and be wrong because I feel like Saskatchewan always seems to get into penalty trouble a little bit more, especially earlier in the year. Let me just pull up the stats. I feel I feel like Winnipeg's a little bit more the Kansas City of the CFL sometimes. So my one big worry from Saskatchewan is if they get in penalty trouble. We know it's like we said, we know it's going to be loud. They can't be getting procedures on 1st and 10. And putting themselves up 1st and 15. When you say rattle, 100%, no problem picking them off, but don't do the late hit. Don't do the late hit. Don't do something that gives 15 because you don't. That's going to give obviously Winnipeg an advantage, and also you're going to give the fans more reason to boo you. And I think that's not what you need to do. I'm trying to find this penalty here. Penalties. Yeah, Winnipeg's got the least amount of penalties on them, and Saskatchewan's 4th. So not too bad, but just a little bit of a difference there. Penalty yards, yeah, Winnipeg's the least. Saskatchewan's actually 5th in penalty yards. Saskatchewan, actually, offensive penalties, Winnipeg and Saskatchewan are both close. So most of our penalties come on defense, both teams. So yeah, we're talking about those secondaries. I think it's whoever doesn't get pass interference like least, or whoever gets them the least, is going to win this game because it's going to come down to the third or fourth quarter, and both teams are probably going to bomb it out. And if there's some stupid pass interference that gets challenged and overturned and reviewed and overturned and whatever, I think that's going to break the game.
I think the biggest one that I'm going to be watching for, and it's again the biggest stat I'm watching for, is turnovers. Saskatchewan won it by an absolutely insane amount this year. That being said, again, that doesn't matter anything in the playoffs. It's irrelevant at this point. Roland Milligan got a pile of turnovers. Great. Can he do it in a playoff game? But I'll tell you right now, if the Riders can do what they did against the BC Lions, I like the Riders' chances to win this game.
And I actually found Saskatchewan is 8th in defensive penalties this year.
Yeah.
So the only team worse was Edmonton by a fair bit. And so Saskatchewan had 51 defensive penalties. Winnipeg had 33, and they were the least flagged defense this year. So again, maybe Winnipeg's the Kansas City of the CFL. I'll wholeheartedly admit it a little bit, which is nice because the Canad-In days, we definitely weren't. So, I'll take that. But I think it's going to come down to penalties because, again, if you're facing 1st and 15, that's a lot different, right? You're kind of forced to throw it a little bit more, especially third quarter, and you're down a little bit. And I like Harris's playing, but either Harris or Zach, I really don't want the game to be put in position where they need to win it. That scares me for both sides.
That being said, Harris or Collaros, both have done this before, and they both have won the game when it comes down to the final play. Collaros might have needed a little bit of wind assistance to win the last one that he did, but I guess it counts. Nevertheless, I guess let's move on to predictions here. Do you want me to start, or you want to start on this?
You can go first this time.
Okay, fine.
And thanks, Richard. Well, yeah, I know Jamar Chase screwed me up. I played 2 people this week in different leagues that had Jamar Chase, and he put up like 30 points. So I'm done with NFL fantasy.
I was done after week 2. I won week 1, and then I was like, that's. Anyways, you know what? I was looking at this game, and this game here, I don't know why, it feels like the West Final in 2007 for the Rough Riders. Not the Grey Cup. Grey Cup was when we played Winnipeg. Kevin Glenn was injured, all that stuff, and yeah, that went how it went. But the West Final for Saskatchewan in 2007, we went in and we were going to have to play in BC, where the Riders sucked playing in BC every West Final. They'd make it to that point, and then Wally would bring out Dave Dickinson and beat the living teeth out of us. Or it was Travis Lulay and beat the living tar out of us. It's just always the way it went. But that year in 2007, there was a big play that happened, and all of a sudden the Riders were kind of rolling. And I think that year it was Kerry Joseph running the football down and going in Labor Day and winning that game for the Riders. After that, the Riders never turned around. The BC Lions that year, I don't know what it was, but the Riders just felt like a team of destiny after that point. And I think that game that Raquel Armstead ran 200 plus yards against Calgary turned the season around for the Rough Riders. I don't want to say this is a team of destiny because I hate that saying. It isn't a team of destiny. They just got good and hot at the right time. Like I say, you've got two solid running backs, which Winnipeg has not faced the solid running back tandem that the Riders have. Last two games that they played against the Riders, it was Frankie Hickson. Now it's Armstead and Ouellette. The Riders have Trevor Harris back, who's been an all-star, I think, at this point. You've got Deshaun Johnson, who's been really good. Jarrett Stearns has been good. You've got guys again like Keon Schaefer-Baker. Samuel Emilus has been very good all season. I didn't even mention him yet today. The O-line seems to have improved a lot since the last time these teams have all played, and they're getting healthy, which is another big thing. I was so heartbroken to see Yoshi Hardrick on the sidelines cheering like heck, but can't play. I can guarantee you he was probably wanting to go out there, even if he's half injured and can't really do much. I'm sure he was out there this week and just trying to bug Corey Mace. Let me in. I want to go in. Because you could just see it in his intensity.
Yeah, I can tell you for a fact a lot of games here in Winnipeg, when he was taken out, he's maybe got his pads off, but he's still standing on the bench with the towel when they're on defense. He's giving guys high fives. Yeah, him being hurt is not it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, last game he was going and a guy gets a touchdown. He was carrying him off the field.
Yeah,
just because he could.
He's one guy I really miss. I get you couldn't keep him and Bryant and everything, but yeah, he's one guy I miss a lot on the Bombers.
Yeah. Anyways, in Saskatchewan again, the defense has been decent. The turnovers have been excellent. That's not a problem for the Riders. And I'll tell you right now, I think their coach has been one of the best there's been around right now. And I think he's got this team running through pretty much the side of Mosaic Stadium when he wants them to. So I'm going to go with the Rough Riders. I shouldn't be picking my own team because of bias, and everybody thinks I'm biased. But honestly, I think this is a team that has been just absolutely great in the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks. They've been stronger and stronger. Last week, I thought they had a really good game against the BC Lions. And you know what? I don't think Winnipeg – something about Winnipeg this year, they're either going to be real good or really kind of interesting. And I'm going to go with the Rough Riders winning this one here. So I'll take the +3.5 outright and win. And I'm going to go with the over on this game. It's playoff time. Anything – you know, I shouldn't be taking over because I know there's probably going to be 5 interceptions. It's probably Collaros is going to hit the uprights to finally go and get that curse off of the Saskatchewan back. Because, I mean, BC did it twice. Sorry, Sean White. Anyways, I'm going to go with the over. I'm going to go with the Riders. And that gives me some cinema next weekend in BC.
Yeah, you have it Montreal, Saskatchewan next week, where I have one of these teams looking to play Toronto. Yeah, for every reason you just said, and the fact that I'm going for back-to-back years with my preseason bet winning the Grey Cup, I got to take the Rough Riders to win this one. And I'm not even doing it to be biased. I honestly think I'm actually surprised it's +3.5. I would have put both of these games. I might have honestly swapped the games. I would put Montreal maybe -3.5 or have both of these games at -2. I think this one's a lot closer than 3.5. When it opened at 4.5, like in the week in the Discord, I said jump on this because it's going to go down. I'm actually surprised it isn't more down, and it might be by kickoff tomorrow, especially if there's a key bomber or something injury or something coming out, or maybe a couple of Rough Riders, some of those Rough Riders that are on the injured list wind up on the depth chart. I bet the betting line will change a little bit on Saturday morning, but I'm going to go Saskatchewan +3.5. Give me Saskatchewan to win this one. I did have the over, but you made some convincing points. It's probably going to have 5 interceptions each quarterback, a fumble or 2, an upright, a missed field goal, a punt return that gets brought back for the holding. It's going to be a stupid game between Saskatchewan and Winnipeg. So give me the under 48 on this one. I could see it exactly being like the one in 2019. What was it? 2013 final? Something like that?
Yep.
Something like that. I could see that game being the exact same. It's going to be 20 to something, and whichever team is losing is going to have the ball at the goal line trying to get the win or game-winning field goal or something. So it's gonna be a good one, I think, on Saturday. Both games are gonna be really good. Like these are the matchups. I think these are the matchups everyone kind of expected early in the year. And it's actually not gonna. I think the way it winded around, I think both games are coin flips, especially how Montreal started. And when in Saskatchewan, they were making my 14-4 prediction look pretty good earlier in the year, too. And then they hit the, and then Winnipeg did the opposite, right? My 7-11 was looking good, and then they did the opposite. So I don't know, but I think Saskatchewan's going to win, and I want to win another preseason bet. I think 2 in a row would be really good.
Yeah. Trey will be smiling if that happens, I'm sure. So,
I remember last year I was pissing my family off so much. I'm sending them the screenshot of my Montreal bet, and my uncle's like, "Why would you do that?" And I was like, "I don't know what I was thinking in February. I don't know. I didn't." So
yeah. The divine spirit of Ronnie Lancaster came down and told Trey pick the Saskatchewan Roughriders this year. I'm sure
it was all based off of odds, and I thought too. So my thought on Montreal last year was it was all chaos at free agency. They didn't have an owner. They didn't have all these things. And then the owner comes into place and all these things. And with their odds reflected a team that had no direction that ended up having direction. So I thought, betting wise, that's the smart play. And that's the same thing I thought about Saskatchewan. Their odds in the offseason were pretty dang good for a team that has AJ Ouellette as your running back, Schaefer Baker, Emilus as your receiving, Trevor Harris as your quarterback, a defense, which we've talked about, Elford as your kick returner. Those odds didn't add up. What the odds were saying was this is a team that hasn't done much the last couple of years and now has a rookie head coach. And we always see what a rookie head coach or a new coach can do to a team. And again, it's not necessarily I want Saskatchewan to win or I even think Saskatchewan's going to win. It's just the betting the odds. Like Montreal and Winnipeg had no value. It's at the beginning of the year, which is crazy. So like I feel like I just saw something with the next year's World Series. I feel like the Dodgers and the Yankees are so heavily favored again. There's no value betting on the favorites in sports because everybody does it.
So
and that's a 32 league.
So you're saying go with the Chicago White Sox in baseball next year?
No, but what was the team? There was a couple teams that had big bounce backs from this year. Washington was one, and then there was another team in baseball that I can't think of it right now. Baltimore. Was it Baltimore? Where a couple of years ago they had like 30 wins and then they almost had 100, right? So there are teams in baseball that can do that switch, and all it takes is a new manager, maybe a new pitcher in your rotation, and a couple prospects, and that's the same thing in football. And I think that's what Saskatchewan is. I think Saskatchewan and Toronto. Well, more Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan to me right now is what Winnipeg was in 2019. They got nothing to lose. No one believes. A lot of people didn't believe in them all year. They've had the injuries. They're not going to do it. I even saw a lot more people be on BC last week than I thought would be. And, you're right. I don't want to say team of destiny, but hey, the Americans beat the Russians in Salt Lake. So, I think it happened.
I can assure you that the parade route in Saskatchewan would be epic if it actually happens, but that's still 2 weeks away.
Apparently, you have to go across the province to hit all the fans, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And will all the fans drive in for the parade? That will be the next question.
Yeah. Well.
Anyways, Trey, I got to ask you the old, of course, the Mike Garrell question, because he asks everybody this every season. If the Winnipeg Blue Bombers lose this game to the Saskatchewan Roughriders, is the season still a success?
No.
It's Grey Cup or bust now for Winnipeg. Eh?
I mean, for a team, and it's tough, for a team that's lost back-to-back years, usually you would say the next step is you have to win it, right? And I know they had the two before. I get that. But, if they didn't have those two before and they had back-to-back losses, would you not think it was Grey Cup win or bust almost?
I would say.
And I mean, for a team, I just feel like if they don't even make it to the Grey Cup, the amount of money they spend on Coleros, the amount of money they spent on Schoen, who's been injured, the amount of money they spend on Oliveira and their defensive line and things like that, they set themselves up that this year and next year are their last 2 years with this core group, with the hope that they do something good next year. So if they can't even make it to the Grey Cup this year, what the hell are they going to do next year when they host it? And that was the plan, because I believe Caleros' contract ends next year, and it was all to be lined up with this Grey Cup. So again, if you can't even make it, why the hell did we sign Caleros for next year? Like, I don't even want him. I want us to, I don't know, get VA. I don't care what salary cap you have to eat, get VA or Trey Ford and go from there. But I think it's great. I think you have to win. Because these are the two teams that we lost to too in our last two, right? So either Toronto or Montreal, regardless of who wins that one, I think from a fan base and a team fan base, yes, Winnipeg needs to. Where Saskatchewan, if I'm going to be honest from an outsider, I think other than maybe the fan base stuff that we talked about earlier, I think for a first year under Corey Mace, I think you could say this was a rather success if it's going to be a loss at Princess Auto Field by 2 or 3 points.
Yeah, I agree. I think Saskatchewan, right now we're playing with house money.
Yeah.
I don't think the Riders are that well, obviously they want to get to the Grey Cup and win the thing. But again, it's not quite the same maybe as the pressure on Winnipeg, who, again, I think they expected to see the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the Grey Cup or in the West Final this year, probably over Saskatchewan, especially after you seen Nathan Rourke and you seen Matthew Betts come back. And, of course, you had a few others in there. But the BC Lions were the team that was expected to be in the West Final and probably hosting it, to be honest with you. And then if they would have lost to that and BC would have made the Grey Cup, okay, maybe then Winnipeg fans would have felt a little better. But if they lose against Saskatchewan, I don't know. I think Winnipeg might want to start thinking about getting a stick of dynamite.
No. And to this whole dynasty talk, I think to make any legitimate argument, they have to go 3 out of 5 and have 5 straight appearances.
5 straight appearances and at least 3 wins.
Yeah. If you want to hold that dynasty, I think, if they make it to the Grey Cup, see, maybe in a 30-team league, I could argue 5 straight appearances could quantify that. But in a 9-team league, to have 5 straight Grey Cup appearances, I mean, a league where we've had winners win 5, 6 in a row, like
no doubt, the Kansas City referees are definitely a dynasty, without a doubt they are.
Yeah.
But again, the Bombers, I think, you know what, if they get to the Grey Cup this year, that was a very, very good team for a very long time, and it still will always be considered a very good team for a very long time, because usually teams fall down eventually. Although, mind you, then do you call Hamilton maybe a dynasty? Because, I mean, 13, 14, they were always in the Grey Cup, but they just never could win it.
See, I think the goalpost for dynasty in modern sports, because I don't think we're going to see like, what was it, the 80s or the 70s Edmonton team? We're not going to see a team do that 5 in a row. We're not going to see the Dallas Cowboys win it a bunch in a row. Like, we're not going to see these teams win it a bunch in a row in any sport anymore, especially with salary cap, especially with players. They end up leaving for bigger salary or bigger payday somewhere else. I don't think you're ever going to see it nowadays. So I can respect that 5 straight appearances is pretty good. But yeah, you need to win at least over half of them. So if they lose in the Grey Cup and then they maybe win next year's at home 3 over 6, I could start kind of going back that way. But if they lose on Saturday or lose next Sunday, yeah, it's not a dynasty in Winnipeg. I think I don't care about these terms.
Yeah, and again, Winnipeg fans, very good team. They have been a very good team for a very long time. Maybe not the first 5 games this season, but we'll talk about that another day.
Well, and Winnipeg fans are a bunch of losers because they just think we're the best at everything, man. And we lead the country in 2 things: murders per capita and slushies per capita, man. That's it.
Slushies are pretty great.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Anyway, what do you say we're going to wrap this thing up?
Heck yeah. What do we do? Oh, here's the outro. Right. See it. I just zone out. Make sure to check out Mikey's playoff post-game show live Saturday night. I believe he's doing that again. I saw a little bit of it last Saturday. You jumped in for a second, didn't you?
And I jumped in for a second. Him and Shane there. They did a pretty good job. They're giving you the analysis and everything else. Of course, Mike had to rip me a little bit about the turnout in Saskatchewan, but nevertheless, it's a great.
We love Mike, but Mike's one of those. He's a little bit of bomber homer. He doesn't have a horse in the race, but he does.
Doesn't have a horse in the race.
Mike, we love you. And good chance I might call in on Saturday because I might be on the bus ride home and have nothing better to do after sitting in my shorts for 4 hours. So we'll see how that goes, and then we'll be you, me, and hopefully Ryan and maybe Mike will be back for Grey Cup preview show a week today, Thursday, to talk about two of these 4 teams and their matchup and what Joe Bros songs we think are going to be played, and if Taylor Swift will be there or not. So all the great fun Grey Cup stats and maybe some interesting betting picks. I know they don't really post Grey Cup betting picks like they do for the Super Bowl, but maybe I'll have to make up some of my own. Follow us on the X. On the X, it's still going. There's a lot of Elon stuff on there, but it's still going at CF Countdown Pod, or on Facebook at facebook.com/CF Countdown Pod. Check out all the other great shows from the Canadian Football Podcast Network at CF Pod Network on the X, and the Alternative Football Network at the official AFN on Twitter. I know I'm getting absolutely obliterated in that fantasy football that me and Ryan joined because I'm playing a guy that had Chase, and guess what? Chase put up 50.4 points today, and then in our league, the one we are, as Richard said, he had Chase too and put up those points on me there. So not great. If you really care about what I do, you can find me at Trey MB Harness on the X. I usually got some UFC, horse racing, football stuff there. Little fight night this week. Next week, before Grey Cup, UFC 309, John Jones makes his return to MSG. So I'm pretty excited about that one. Adam, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Adam Stewart, one at the old X, I guess. Probably won't find too many Elon jokes on mine, but you never know. There'd be something there.
Oh, all I meant is that he's the only. I don't even follow him, and every other tweet's him. And I mean, I guess if he owned the thing, I would do the same thing.
Fair enough. You want to spend the 2-point-some billion that he spent to buy it. Good on you, I suppose. Yeah, you'll find me yapping about probably the game this weekend. You'll probably see me talking a lot more senior hockey coming up here. Our first week is next week, next Friday night against the old Langenburg Warriors. And then, of course, then after that, we got the Valley Axemen. Can't call them Swan Valley because they aren't the Swan Valley. They're just the Valley Axemen, who look like they're a pretty good team as well. So some good hockey coming up. Of course, great football coming up. Yeah. And then, of course, next Sunday, Grey Cup Sunday, that'll be very great to watch. Other than that, yeah, Adam Stewart 1, if you want to go and give me a message over on the old X.
And just reminder, there is an early game on Sunday in the NFL for people playing fantasy. There's a Germany game at 8:30, so make sure you get those rosters done Saturday night. Yeah. And is Mike Garrell 1? M Garrell 1? I can't remember Mike's and
M Garrell.
Whatever. If you follow the show, you know where you can find Ryan and Mike at.
Yeah, well, Ryan's at Cooper Trooper 42.
There we go.
He's never usually on X very much, but you never know. You might maybe message him and convince him to join you for a minute there on there. But I know we're usually Trey and where Ryan are most times, and myself quite a bit, is over on our Discord channel. I'll throw another shameless plug for the Discord. We're yapping CFL there, game day. We've got our game day talk there. So if you want to do some trash talking or just, giving your opinion on some play or some thing, you can do that right over there. We're usually following around there too somewhere. The Discord channel, yeah, Retrudy says he loves the Discord. Of course, it's a great system. And it's fun to watch, see what's going on all over the place. And we talk almost anything over there. Sometimes we're talking Major League Baseball and Shote, and sometimes we're talking Trey and his UFC, or the odd day I might be posting a Baylor on fire. Depends what's going on. Everything happens in Discord.
I've been really impressed with the Discord, the amount of fantasy knowledge we have from guys. Like, we just had Charlie on a couple weeks, who was top in the country not too long ago. We got our boy Brandon, who didn't do too good in CFL fantasy, but he's usually pretty on it with the college fantasy and stuff. And other guys like Richard, all these people with the fantasy knowledge. I was quite impressed with that. I actually had to step up a little bit on my fantasy this year. And the betting expert too. A lot of people got some good betting picks and stuff where it's tough to be the expert among you guys in the Discord. So it's keeping us on our toes. So, but make sure whatever platform you're listening on, we appreciate if you keep all the fun things. Comment, subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends. Share the show with all your friends, people you don't even know. Maybe they'll like it. Help us grow the show. We always appreciate that. On behalf of Ryan, who ain't here today, Mike, who I don't know where Mike is, my boy Adam here, I'm Trey Colbeck. We'll see you. I guess Mike will see you on Saturday, and the rest of us will see you next Thursday. Take care. Bye-bye. Now, where's this outing?